I'm Charlie Wright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Chris Sanders, the director of the film The Wild Robot, as part of our Meet the Experts film animation panel. I'm just going to be very blunt with my first question. Did you mean to have me crying like it was ugly crying by the end of that movie? Is that your goal for everybody?
I think it was very much our goal to, I think, be first and foremost, be true to Peter's book. But we were feeling all those things as we were making this film. So to find out that other people were reacting the same way that we did was uh, was really gratifying.
Um, uh, I'm, I think one of the central things about the movie is the look and design of Roz the robot is so compelling, and it just feels right on so many levels. And I'm wondering what went into getting the look and design of Roz.
We, in the translation from the robot as depicted in Peter Brown's novel, we were looking for something that was going to be memorable and was going to be classic. If in success, that it would be something that would endure as far as the design, and that meant we had to find something that had some level of simplicity and um, and uh, and charm, really. But also it had to be a little bit different in the Venn diagram of robots. You're always going to have some territory that you're like, veering into that somebody else is in there as well. And we were all trying our hand at it, including myself. And it was our one of our artists, Hyun Ha, who came in with the design that you saw. He was able to find a visual, I think, rhythm with all those spheres. So it was a theme and variation that he came up with, and his spheres were so friendly, and that's exactly how we want to feel to people to feel about Roz. I always looked at Roz as though she was a real thing that a real person could order in the future. I'd always like I wanted this robot to feel like, you could replace a part on her if you had to, that she was user friendly, and that the things that she did and the things that you saw on her just made sense.
Um, so I know this was taken from a book, like you said. What was the author's name again? Peter Brown.
Peter Brown.
Peter
Yeah.
Brown. And were there any other inspirations that you looked to for the story or for the design of the movie?
Well, absolutely. In the environments in the world, there were two artists that we were focused on as far as an aspirational aspect of this whole thing. First and foremost, Miyazaki's forests, particularly for me, the ones that I saw when I watched My Neighbor Totoro. Those really, stuck with me. I'd never seen a forest that was that completely immersive, and had such a beautiful style to it. Um, but also Tyrus Wong's soft oil painted textures and style that he brought to Bambi. And Bambi again is also, I think, one of the greatest animated forests, illustrated forests I'd ever seen. So aspirationally, those were the vibes that we were those were the styles I think were our North Star, would be probably the best way to say it.
And it's interesting you brought up specifically Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro. I talked last year with Toshio Suzuki, who heads Studio Ghibli, and when I asked him what's his favorite one, he actually said, "I usually don't say, but it is My Neighbor Totoro." uh,
That's really exciting. When I visited their studio, the one and only time I ever visited, I was standing in his parking spot when he pulled in. And that's how I met him. I was waiting to go in and there was nobody parked there and I was just standing right in his parking spot. And that's how I met him. He was so kind and so nice.
I think one of the things like what I love about a movie like The Wild Robot is it hits where it hits notes that work, for younger viewers, but then there are other notes that hit that definitely work more for,
Mm.
older viewers, people in their old age in their late 30s like myself. Um, um, how do you find the balance between making sure your film has those appeals to both young people as well as adults?
There's two things going on. First and foremost, whenever we work on an animated film, no matter what it is, we never try to target anyone. I strive and work to just never exclude anyone. I never target anyone at the same time on the other end of that whole scale. I think if you're targeting a particular group, you're going to probably inevitably miss. I think you just want to be all inclusive. Um, but in the case of the Wild Robot, I was particularly concerned that it would have a level of sophistication so that uh, grown-up people like me, um, people who weren't kids, anybody who was above the age of like, 25, would see it in a certain way. Because I knew that there were so many appealing things that kids were automatically going to be drawn to, not the least of which is that it's a book that is widely read amongst school children of a certain grade level. So I felt like all those things were very kid-friendly. But I thought or should I say, I felt that we owed Peter's book and we owed the story that kind of resonant sophistication so that it feel just the right way. And I think we achieved it. That's the whole drive behind that unique style that was created really just for that particular project.
Uh, so one of the other things I think makes the movie work so well is, of course, the voice of Roz, and I'm curious as to what was the process like that ended with Lupita Nyong'o being the voice of Roz.
Our casting director, Christi Soper, suggested Lupita as the voice of Roz. She was the number one person on our list, and we were very fortunate that she said yes. And that was just the beginning of the process. Roz is an incredibly subtle character. She's very specific, but very elusive in a lot of ways. And for me, it was a journey, an absolutely fascinating journey, working with Lupita every single time we got together to record. And even beforehand, we had several conversations before we even got into a recording studio, just as to what the architecture of Roz's mind would be like. Because Roz was, she's a programmed being that is going to begin to change. And so Lupita it was fascinating for me to watch Lupita like deconstruct Roz and then put her back together again, if you will, and just so that she could understand the architecture of her thinking. And then Lupita went even beyond that. She actually created a voice. So the voice that you hear coming from Roz has a three-step development. There's the phase one voice where she's fresh out of the box. And that was the one that was, I think, the hardest on Lupita vocally. And she created that sound. And we termed it a kind of a relentless optimism. The kind of thing you hear from Siri or from Alexa when you say hello to them, they're like, "Hello, can I help you?" And they're very energetic and very can-do and very positive. So it's that sort of positivity that Lupita captured. But as the film goes on and the story develops, she certainly becomes a more dimensional being and much more human, if you will, and much more just actual like Lupita. So as we record, and as you know, we do things completely out of order, depending on what the needs of the story are at that particular time in the process. And even within a recording session, we'll move around so as to not stress Lupita's voice more than it needs to. So we would always have to be very clear, is this a phase three, phase two, or phase one voice as we jumped into each of those bits as we recorded?
Were any of the other voices difficult to cast to find the right find the right fit for, be it Pedro Pascal or Kit Connor or Matt Berry or any of those people?
We were so fortunate that our very first choices for every character, they all said yes. And I think Christi Soper's the art of the casting that she produced was magnificent. Just so as we recorded each of these characters, they customize their own character. I write a character as closely to I think it should be as possible, but once it's cast, I immediately go in and I try to predictively um, change it so that it'll be a better fit for that particular actor. But then inevitably, when we come in and we actually get there with the mic, there's more customization and more development. And that's where I have to say I was especially impressed with Christie's choices because the the how incredibly well suited and what a good fit each of these actors were to their particular character became more and more evident the more I worked with each of them.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over the next couple of months, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
Ah, thank you so much.